Good morning. You're probably wondering why I'm charging my compressor. This is the first repair attempt, I should say, in my new ultra small workshop. I'm using this to blow out the dust of what I'm trying to fix. On the bench here, I have got a Tektronix 2335, a 2335 100 megahertz oscilloscope. I got on eBay a few weeks back. Supposedly it worked, and that was before I found out that my buddy was going to give me back this scope here. So I bought this off of eBay. When I got it home, there was no trace on it, although the picture showed a trace. It didn't show a waveform, but it showed a trace. I don't know what happened, whether it got damaged in transit or not, but I requested a refund, and I said, well, this thing cost quite a bit to ship. I had to pay more for the shipping than the scope, almost as much. They gave me I thought they were very good. They said, we'll make an exception. We'll send you a partial refund for the scope, but not the shipping. And we will not ask for the scope back. I thought that was very good of them. So I got this scope basically for the cost of shipping. It is loaded with dirt. I mean loaded, and we're going to discharge these caps too before we do any work on it. It did come with the cover, but like all these type of scopes, there's never anything in the cover. I think they did have a digital meter in there in some of the models. So I removed the cover. I took the little thin bar that holds the hinge together and took the cover off, because the cover has a broken catch on it and everything's loose in it. Now up here inside that cover, I thought this was dirt. These are super small chips, and you may not see that on this camera. Get your magnifying glass. They are super tiny, and these were inside this. This thing was rattling around with screws and everything else in it. So I took it off. The only thing that bothers me is I developed a black spot on the corner of the screen, and I'll show you. I have to be very careful here. Right up here. That was not there yesterday. No, well, actually yesterday I had this put away for a few days. That was not there. So I hope the tube didn't go to hell. It had tremendous brightness, but I think it lost high voltage. Now, this scope has 2700 volts on the second anode. I'm going to blow this out with the compressor and in the case here and everything else. Before I do anything else, I doubt I'll be able to fix it. I don't have the knowledge to do that. But my buddy, who works on electronics and he's an instrument technician, calibrated this scope here. He needed it for work. He bought it for, as I showed you on an earlier video, he bought that scope from me for $30 when I got rid of it. I took it home with me along with their little NLS 215. I didn't want to sell this, but I had no place to store it, and this was before I decided to make a workshop. So he says, okay, I'll buy it from you, and I said I only wanted 30. So last Saturday, he said I can have it. I said, like I said before in this other video, I will not take it back free. I want to at least give you the money that you paid me for it. So he accepted the $30. So before all this transaction took place, I was looking for a used oscilloscope, a Tektronix 100 megahertz, which is what this is. So now I've got this scope. But if I can't fix this, Mike will. I've known Mike for many, many, many years. I've known Mike since, so I'd say, the middle to late 70s. And he says he'll unless it needs some special parts, he'll fix this and calibrate this. So if he can do that, that would be fantastic. Now, I got the book on this scope. I got the instruction book right here. Now, these scopes came with service manuals. This didn't have it, but I do have the instruction book, the original one. So we're going to take it out and I'm going to blow it out. I'm not going to put that on video. And then I want to check the fuses down here. And I don't like the looks of that black spot that's right in the upper right hand corner. There's a very dark area there that was not there before. And there's a I don't know what the heck this is, but I thought it was the gradial, but it's not the gradial because that's not moving. So let's clean it up. Okay, some good news on that dark area. That is just dirt here. See it? Can you see it there? That comes right off. But that wasn't there before. When I got the scope, this channel A, or channel 1, the BNC is loose. And I don't see how I'd get in there. I maybe have to take this band off as a dark, hard plastic. But I got to blow out the rest of this. That little compressor has to keep being recharged. So I blew out one time here, but I got a mess because this is still very, very dirty. And this blew right out, so I got to put that back in. Okay, now she's all clean. Now you don't know what this is. But anyways, I don't see any way to get behind there, but we'll take it on the bench here and see. Everything's loose on it. I mean, this is extra loose. Knob is missing here. This knob was busted. It fell right off and cracked in half. I had to use some Gorilla Glue, super glue on it. And well, these are, from what I understand, these are military type oscilloscopes. This was made in 1982. So this is one of the first of this series. So what I'm going to do here is to bring it in. I got to be careful because I don't know if there's any charges on the capacitors. So I've been carrying it very carefully with the frame here. And we'll take it in and see what I can do. The power switch here, you can't even tell this is on unless you play around with the triggering, and then that lights. Or you turn the calibration to the uncal mode, and then the uncal light will come on, so you know it's on, because this is supposed to have a bulb or an LED in here, and I don't want to pull on that, but that don't light. But we're going to work on this and see what I can come up with here. I doubt I'll be able to fix it. I've never worked on a scope in my... Well, I have worked on old scopes. I've worked on old oscilloscopes. My first one was a Hickok Model 505, real old timer. And then I've had Heath. I've had maybe 5 or 6 scopes, if not much more than that, old ones. But I've never had one of this type, because these things go on eBay now for $250-300, and some of them aren't even working. So I got this at a super good price for the cost of shipping only, because it stopped responding. It was working. I had dual trace on it, and everything else was working really well. And then it just stopped, no matter where you put the brightness. You can turn the intensity all the way up and nothing happened. Before, it used to be so bright, you know, and it had good traces on it and everything. So let's go and see what I can do with this thing. All right, I see where it's loose right there. Let's see if I can hold this camera and this light at the same time. You can probably see that BNC connector. I just got to be able to get something in there. I don't know if I can get a wrench in there. For channel A, that's got to be tightened up. The other ones seem to be okay. This one here seems to be loose. This is the delayed sweep, I think. But that pot shouldn't be loose like that. So we got to tighten that up, and it would have to be up in there. And there's your high voltage. I don't have a high voltage probe. I got rid of those. Kind of wished I kept the 10,000. This is 2700 volts on this second anode here. I blew it out and it's pretty clean now. But, you know, that's quite difficult. But you know what? It looks like some of these chips are plug-ins, which are good. This one don't look like it. But I can't work on that stuff. It's way too small. Well, let me go try to clean that and fix that. Be right back. All right. Well, probably not going to be able to tighten that. Other than with the needle nose, I can turn it. With the screwdriver, try to tighten it up as much as I can with the screwdriver, and then try to snug it up with a needle nose. I'm not going to be able to get an end wrench in there because of this here mounting for the CRT. I think what that is a yeah, that's a shield. That's a grounding, probably an Allen screw or something. I'm not sure. I can't quite see it. That presses up against the metal shielding of the tube. So because of that, I can't get in there good, but it is tightening up. Oh, I'm going to have to do this off camera because I'm going to need to get my big ugly head in there and try to tighten it up as much as I can. And then after this cleaning out, we're going to try it out again. I checked the fuses on the top circuit board and they seem to be okay. Well, I got that as tight as I could get it with a needle nose. It's not the right way to do it. That's the one with this blue wire right on that you see there. Light blue wire. So that's tighter. I just have to be careful. I could probably stick a little super glue on the threads, but I don't really, on the nut and the threads. I don't really want to do that though. You can't get a socket in there because I'd have to see the wire. The blue wire goes down inside there, and I'd have to cut that out. And I'm not going to do that. And this is the calibrator, the square wave calibrator here. Here's the calibrator board right here. You can see the little white and red striped wire there. So, all right, as far as this power switch is concerned, I gave it a pretty good pull with my fingers. It does not come out, and I don't want to turn it and risk breaking the shaft. The switch works good, it's just that the light don't come on. I don't have the service manual on this. eBay has one for $15 on a CD for the 2335 scope, which is what this is, but I don't know how good the quality is going to be, and I'm not that good at that type of electronics, but I can do basic things. But you know, as far as the theory of operation and what circuit is what, I couldn't tell you. But I watch a lot of YouTube videos on scope repairs, and I learn things to some extent. So I'd like to be able to get a bulb in this, but right now I want to see if there's going to be a trace on this. I doubt it. But I cleaned these switches here. The trigger view and the BW limit right here. Mike had told me that a lot of times you have to play around with these trigger view switches because they get dirty. Now I sprayed them, and sometimes, you know, you have to play around to get the display to work. Well, that didn't work in this case, but I sprayed it in the back here. All these fuses here are good. The fuse over here is good, and I don't know, then the Costa fuse in the back, which is the main fuse, is good. Alright, what I'm going to do now is to power her up. Most of these scopes and equipment take the standard computer plug, although this one had a original cord had a right angle, and it had a holding clamp which is on the back of the cabinet, but not a big deal. This did not come with a cord, but I have plenty of these cords. So what we're going to do now is try it out. And of course there's going to be high voltage here, so we have to make very sure that we are very careful here as to what we're going to be touching. You don't want to touch anything. It's got 2700 volts on it. You don't even want to touch something that's got 300 or 400 volts on it. Let me see if I'm in camera here. Yep. This little tripod I'm using came from my workshop. So we're going to plug her in over on this other outlet here on the other side of the bench. Okay, she's on. Fan's going in the back. And I don't see anything. Brightness is all the way up. I don't have a high voltage probe, so I can't tell if there's high voltage, and it would be hard to get at it because I don't have a service manual on the proper way of checking it. But the beam finder doesn't respond either, so don't have the service manual. I can't check for voltages and what I'm supposed to have on different sections. I'll have to put the light out in the shed here, but this thing is so bright that you'd have no problem seeing it. It's just randomly cleaning controls and switches. This is this Radio Shack stuff I bought years ago, Radio Shack cleaner and lubricant, but it's one of these types that just literally dissolve and doesn't really do that much. But I'm not getting anything on the screen at all. It's really hard to get in there to see it. Being that this is still on, I can't do too much.
see any bulging caps.
Well, right here looks like you'd probably disconnect this, probably like a fuse holder, or unplug in here. It's into like a clamp, and that's your high voltage lead there, but I'm not going to mess with that because I don't have the probe to test that. That's my suspicion. I suspect that it lost the high voltage. But Mike had also said that it was, that it could very well be the triggering, as he's worked on quite a few scopes. But I set the triggering on every possible combination, and it didn't seem to make any difference. There's no display on it. Now, this is loose. There's an Allen screw here, but I don't think I have one small enough. I might be able to pull that out and tighten it up. This panel comes off, but I don't want to pull these knobs, especially this has been glued in, and I don't know if it'll... When I glued that, I glued the shaft back to the outer part. In other words, the plastic was partially on the shaft. The plastic came off, so I pushed the plastic on the shaft, on the metal shaft, and then glued this back onto the metal, onto the plastic shaft. So hopefully somebody fixed this. This don't belong there. See, somebody had repaired this knob, and you can't get knobs exactly like this. They're supposed to be 1/8 inch shafts. I'd have to measure that. This here is missing, but I can live with that. I can work with that. I'm not sure if I have to turn that or not. I have to study the book on it again. But right now I got to get something on the display. If I can't do anything, I'll have to give it to my buddy Mike there, and he assures me he's almost certain he can fix this, unless it's got some special part that is no longer available. Tektronix, from what I've been reading, uses a lot of proprietary parts, and a scope like this is very hard to work on because it is so small and compact. But I've seen worse, much harder to work on. And there's a lot of these electrolytics in here and stuff, but when I get my ESR meter hooked, I can run the ESR checks on these. But if I can't get a display on this, I'm not going to mess around with it too much. Alright, well, I can't do anything with it. I don't have a high voltage probe. I think it's a loss of high voltage. It could even be the CRT itself. Maybe it burnt out, the filament, because it had plenty of brightness. You didn't have to turn that intensity up very high at all. It just stopped giving a response. Nothing happens here. The only thing you'll get is a flicker of the triggering, but I think it's a loss of either the CRT or the high voltage. I'm going to have my buddy Mike look at it. I'll drop it off Saturday. At least it's all cleaned out so he doesn't have to deal with all that dust. Alright, I didn't think I could fix it, but I was wishful thinking. But I did tighten this up successfully. I went back in there again and got a little better angle at it and really snugged it real good. This is loose, but in order to tighten that up, it's recessed in a well. I'd have to get a tiny Allen wrench to get that off and pull it out, but I would attempt that if I can get the display to work. But the display is not going to work. So, who knows? You know, it might be able to be fixed. Thanks for watching. My first attempt at a repair in my very small workshop. Thanks for watching. There'll be more to come, I'm sure. Take care, everybody.